And the therapist, we had mentioned several times, and we'll be mentioning over and over again, those 4 words. What upholds your existence?
As happy as me, you'll never see.
I'm not a traditional hypnotherapist, because I have found that since 1958 and thereafter, when the American Medical Association gave its official stamp of approval to hypnosis, that it's been stagnating. It hasn't moved ahead. I think it's been in a rut, a boring rut, sameness, doing it the same way constantly, same procedures, same ideas about suggestibility. And hypnotists have used that ever since. I used it when I began, and it's effective. And there are thousands of different ways of testing, establishing suggestibility. We'll try one now. We'll do one now, okay? Put down your pens and paper, whatever it is. I want you to raise your hands up your knee. Please close your eyes. I want you to imagine or envision, whichever is easiest for you, that I'm taking a large encyclopedia-sized book weighing approximately 5.5 pounds and placing it on your right hand. You're now holding this large 5.5 pound book in your right hand, and you can feel the weight. It's not a feather, it's not a few ounces, it's 5.5 pounds. Now I want you to imagine or envision that I'm taking a helium balloon tied to a string, and I'm tying it to the index finger on your left hand. And you can feel that lightness, certain feeling to a helium balloon. Now I want you to imagine or envision that I'm taking a second large 5.5 pound book and placing it on top of the first book in your right hand. So now your right hand is holding up 2 big books weighing approximately 11 pounds, and you're feeling that weight. And as you keep holding it up, the weight is going to increase. And now I want you to imagine and envision I'm taking a second helium balloon tied to a string, and I'm tying it to the index finger on your left hand next to that other helium balloon. So now you're sitting there with approximately 11 pounds of weight on your right hand and 2 helium balloons tied to a string on your index finger on your left hand. Now I want you to open your eyes and look at your hands. See different things, right? A lot of people here were quite suggestible, weren't you? You were using your imagination. You can put your hands down. You were using your imagination. You were letting yourself go along with it. You were quite suggestible. Some people were less suggestible. Some people not suggestible at all. Now that is a standard way of hypnotists and hypnotherapists training an individual in suggestibility. They use your imagination, and there are thousands of different ways of doing this. The idea is to establish in your mind that you can be hypnotized. You're hypnotizable, you're suggestible. And I went along with this system for a long, long time, and then at a certain point in my professional career, I began to question it for a number of reasons. For one thing, I was doing some research with people who had come to me over the years with their problems, and I was trying to determine how effective and how permanent these things were. I wanted to find out if people, in fact, quit smoking for a lifetime or went back to it, what percentage. I wanted to find out if people were able to maintain the weight loss, or whatever it might be. And what I found was a bit disturbing, that over a period of time, it no longer was permanent. Something was slipping, something was being lost. And I began to look at that carefully. Why? And I began to study the whole pattern by which people are trained to do hypnosis in the basic standard ways, Ericksonian or whatever system you're using, and discovered that there were a lot of built-in flaws. The biggest of which was this idea of suggestibility. The idea that I'm going to prove to you in some gimmicky fashion, as if I was a stage hypnotist, that you are suggestible and therefore you will do what I suggest that you do. Yeah, you might go along with it, but that doesn't mean it's going to be permanent. And that didn't satisfy me. I was looking for something more permanent. I wanted people who quit smoking to be non-smokers for life. So what I slowly began to do is to devise a different standard, which is what I'm doing now. What came to my mind was that the best way of convincing an individual of their suggestibility and their willingness to go along was to actually teach them what hypnosis really was, so that they would have a reason to be convinced, an intellectual reason, a common sense. Now they know what it is. Now they know why it's working. They know why it's going to affect them, as opposed to they're going along with it simply because their imagination told them to follow one of these gimmickry things. So I don't relate to suggestibility on that level anymore. I do it this way. In hypnosis, we use metaphors, symbolic stories, word pictures, imagery, end results, many different things which we'll go into as we begin to reshape this into a bigger and broader picture. Neuro-linguistic programming. Language. Again, to simplify. I don't like the term neuro-linguistic programming any more than I like the term bipolar. Manic depression explained itself years ago. They had to create bipolar to get you into thinking about the mind and get you on a higher intellectual level. And neuro-linguistic programming, as far as I'm concerned, is the same thing, to get up into the head level. I like to call it language. Simplify it. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And the mind accepts language in a very simple way, direct way, simple way. Language is what we're talking about when we speak of NLP. I want to digress into the language area because, along with emotions, language is the most important thing we deal with in hypnosis. We begin our understanding and study of language as infants. We learn words. Mommy, daddy, yes, no, good, bad, I want, milk, whatever, words. The mind begins to learn these words. And then we expand upon the words, we begin learning phrases and sentences. And up until that point, it's all well and good, because the objective is communication between parents, siblings. You're expressing yourself, what you feel, what you need, who you are. Pretty clear, pretty human. Then we're sent to a school, at which point the study of language is literally turned upside down and in many ways destroyed. Because instead of it being a process of expression and communication, we're told we have to study grammar, punctuation, English. We have to distinguish between an adverb and a pronoun and a noun, etc., and so on. And we begin to be tested, graded, scored. No. It should be explained as, this is how we express who we are, what we feel, what we believe, and what we think, how we communicate, how we learn to get along with one another. Not this game of testing and proving that you don't know this, therefore, I remember feeling ashamed. I didn't know what a verb and an adverb and I didn't know. And what's more, I didn't give a damn. I hated the idea of someone telling me I was dumb because I didn't know these things. Language. Language fuels the mind. Fuel. The mistake continues with education and language, because without any clear understanding of what it is and why we're learning it, we then go into another broader area of language which is destructive. the words and the sentences and the phrases that we have learned now develop into something different. Attitudes. I remember when my father died, I was very bitter at life, at the world, at everybody. And I walked around saying things like, in this rotten, lousy world, it's dog eat dog, that's all it is. I probably thought I was grown up and clever expressing these kinds of attitudes. I didn't know how destructive these attitudes were to me. But that's what I was fueling my mind with. Further on down the line, these attitudes get even more powerful. They become beliefs. And when you say, I believe, oh boy, you're putting some weight behind it. And then further on, these attitudes and beliefs become values, what we live by, and die by, and suffer by. Language. And in the course of my almost 76 years of living, I've never come across an adult to this day who has ever stopped and asked himself or herself, what is my language? What do I say every day? What comes out of my mouth? What are the words? What are the attitudes, the beliefs? What comes across to people? We don't even think about it. We stop thinking about it at a very early age because of the school system and the testing procedures. And when we go on to higher education, the only reason we're even involved with language is because certain courses, certain requirements are spelled out. You have to take these courses, so then you complete this particular thing in order to graduate. But you haven't done it in order to really improve your language, to understand what it is that is affecting your behavior. We don't know what we say. And there is language for all sorts of different things. For instance, there is language for depression. People who are depressed have a language. They say certain things. They use certain key words. I am badly depressed. I'm severely depressed. Or the biggie, I am clinically depressed. Oh, wow, that's a big, powerful one. When it's clinical, that means that's it. You're a goner. You can't do anything about that one. That word on the mind has a jarring negative effect. I'm clinically, oh my God, I'm hopeless, helpless, hapless. I can't do anything about it, but give me a pill, give me something. I'm mentally ill. Words, fuel. And we never stop to consider what this is about and how it's affecting our lives. In hypnosis, we use language to discover what we need to do in order to change what we need to change. We examine our language. We examine what comes out of our mouth. We examine the way in which our attitudes and beliefs have structured our logic and our reasoning. And then we can take a look and say, well, human mathematics being what it is, if I begin to change my language, then I will begin to change. Things will begin to change. Yeah. That's why I tell people, don't use the word depression. You're sad. It's okay to be sad. Sometimes you feel moody. It's okay to feel moody. Sometimes there's pain, right? There's pain in life. All natural, all human. But depression is a label. And that pulls you down into that depressed state. And then when you get the official diagnosis, then you're further depressed. And you're in greater need of the pill in order to deal with that, as opposed to saying, I'm in pain. My brother died a little over a year and a half ago. I was in great pain. Came at me in waves. I had to revisit so many parts of my life and my brother's life. In fact, I learned more about him in death than I knew in life. And it was quite painful on so many different levels. But I wasn't depressed. Not at all. I was in pain. Pain is human. It's normal. It's healthy. Because only through pain can you be healed. If you don't experience the pain, you will not heal. You will repress. And then, where are you going to go with that? Continue on the road with the medications? And end up like so many millions of people in this country, who suddenly find themselves in their 50s and 60s, still depressed, still on medications, getting sicker and sicker? Language. If you want to call it NLP, I won't sue you, it's okay. But language, by any other name. The process of hypnosis and self-hypnosis. The word that's often used is induction. There are many ways of inducing hypnosis. Years and years ago, I remember the first time I saw it, the hypnotist would use the gold watch and just watch the watch. Other people would say, just focus on a spot, a dot. Or the standard count back from 100 on down. All it really is a process of helping you to relax, to get you into a state of relaxation. What I use, what I've developed over the years, from many, many different sources, I call progressive relaxation. It's a three-part process involving language, breathing, and physical relaxation. And I use that as the natural process leading to hypnosis. It's also the process of simply leading to relaxation, for the sake of relaxation, which is wonderful. You know anyone who doesn't need to be relaxed in this society? We don't know how to relax. What do we do to relax most often? We smoke. Trying to relax. Take the drink. Trying to relax. Shoot dope. Trying to relax. Eat. Biggie. We do all sorts. What?
Watch TV.
Watch TV, right? Because we don't know how to relax in a natural way. We haven't been taught how to do it, and we certainly don't have models out there of people who do it in a natural way. So we end up doing it the way other people do it, going from one addictive source to another. And you know what? We never learn relaxation that way either. Last thing in the world you want to do is try to be relaxed by doing something that's going to addict you to something other than just natural relaxation. So we do progressive relaxation to learn how to relax. We also use the same process for meditation. Now meditation takes many different forms. There are many, many hundreds of different types of meditation. You can meditate on a space, a place, a sound, a mantra, a guru, whatever you choose. In a general sense, for me, meditation is trying to find my peaceful state, wherever it might be. For me personally, my peaceful state is underwater. When I'm snorkeling, I forget time. I don't know it exists. Nan could be on the beach. She could go there in the morning with me, and I go out and snorkel, and she has her breakfast, and then she reads and she writes, and the afternoon goes by, and she has her lunch, and she does her thing and takes her walk, and I'm still snorkeling, and suddenly the sun is going down, and Nan's, Nickolas, where are you already? Come on. I'm totally at peace underwater. Find your own place and time and space to meditate, to find peace. Or you can use this process, the language, the breathing, and the relaxation, to go into hypnosis, to transition into it. The difference is, unlike relaxation, which you do for the sake of relaxing, and meditation for the sake of being in a space you want to be in, hypnosis is utilitarian. It has purpose. That's what the focus is about. You're doing it for a reason. You want to quit smoking, lose weight, gain confidence, be less depressed, find a new job, to make a decision about your life, whatever you're going to do. A problem, a conflict, an issue, whatever it is. So it has purpose. And all you're going to do is transition from the relaxation into the hypnosis, no different than walking from one room into the other. It's the same place, only you're doing it for another reason. Now I'm doing it in order to get into that specific problem, issue, conflict, and deal with it, focus on it. Is that clear? Any questions about that? Okay. Deepening techniques. There are thousands of deepening techniques. You can invent them on your own. Just a matter of going into deeper relaxation / hypnosis. You have to think of it, the best way of thinking of it is that it's endless, that there is no finite point. You never reach a point where you cannot go into deeper relaxation. It's an endless ocean, an endless sky. And you can create so many different ways. And there are standard ways that are part of very old procedures for hypnosis. And there are newer ways, and you can discover your own way of deepening. Hypnotist or hypnotherapist. Learning hypnosis is easy. There are any number of courses you can take, weekend courses, and you could learn hypnosis pretty well. And if you practice it, you'll get pretty good at it. You'll even have some fun with it. And under certain conditions, be able to deal with certain aspects of your life. But that does not mean you are a therapist. It doesn't mean you are equipped to deal with human problems that can occur and develop and spring out of hypnosis. People frequently come to me for one problem. In fact, 85% of the time when someone comes to me for this problem, that's not the real problem. It'll be something entirely different. And often it's the time when people have come to me to lose weight or quit smoking, and in hypnosis suddenly they veer off into another area of life, another reality. Quite normal for that to happen when you are relaxed. There's that tendency to kind of let go and begin to be in touch with emotions. And at that point, you better be with someone who knows how to help you and deal with them, not just someone who knows how to be a hypnotist. It takes a lot more to be a therapist than just being a hypnotist. I fall back on a question I asked my mentor, Jimmy Germano, God love his soul, many, many decades ago. I asked him, I said, Jimmy, how long will it take me to be comfortable as a therapist, to really know what I should know? And he looked and said, minimum of 3,000 to 5,000 sessions. Minimum 3,000 to 5,000 sessions. And he was quite right. Because you have to be able to work with any problem that comes your way. Anything. Back in the days of Encounter, this program that I was directing, we discovered at a very early point that a lot of the young people in the program had experienced incest at an early age. We only had so much training with dealing with incest on a psychiatric level, psychological level, behavioral level. We didn't know enough. Hardly. I didn't feel the least bit capable of working with someone dealing with incest until I had experienced 70 to 80 different situations with people. That's when it first began to clarify itself for me, where I had a clear idea of what to do, how to do it, how to help the person. You don't learn those things quickly, or even by simply studying them in a book and saying, no, you've got to work with people, experience the human reality with those individuals, and then go from there. Yes, it takes 3,000 to 5,000 sessions. I ran a training program at Hofstra University back in 1978, and at the end of the 6-month program, we held a weekend Q&A session. At the very end of the session, at the very end, someone raised their hands and said, Nickolas, is there any problem that you can think of that you haven't dealt with in your career? And I said, not that I can think of, no. And then a young lady jumped up and she had a funny expression on her face, and she says, I've got one for you. I said, shoot. And she looked and said, cannibalism. And everyone, cannibalism. And I looked and said, I got you covered on that one also. Yes, I've dealt with cannibalism. The point of my story being that, yeah, if I encounter something unusual, you better be able to deal with it. And the guy who's just learned to be a hypnotist is not going to be able to deal with it. So if you're going to go and use hypnosis with someone, and it's for a serious issue, problem, whatever, make certain that they have the training and the skills and the experience to be able to work with you. Merely because they're a hypnotist does not mean they can do the other stuff. Dealing with emotions, as I said, is the most important area, along with language. As I truly and faithfully believe that emotions are the root cause of just about all the human problems we're going to encounter, we've got to know what they are. We've got to know how to deal with emotions in hypnosis. Can't merely be relating to the fact that someone suffered a trauma when they were 4 or 5 or 6 years of age without being able to go into that trauma and understand what they were feeling, what they experienced and processed in that moment, in order to be able to get them to deal with it, process it, and release it, so that they're no longer suffering from that initial experience trauma. We've got to know what emotions are and be able to work with them. Healing. Does healing take place with hypnosis? Well, the American Medical Association gave its stamp of approval to hypnosis in 1958 because there were hundreds of thousands of documented cases. That's the only reason they approved of it. They didn't go along with it simply because it was a wave of interest. You'll notice they still haven't gone along with chiropractic and many other things because they, as far as they're concerned, no. But they went along with hypnosis because it's undisputed evidence. And much of that evidence was in healing medical problems. My migraines never came back. They were healed permanently. My asthma was healed the same way. I must tell you, I suffer no guilt about this. Even though we're filming it, at this age I'm not worried they're going to capture me. But I get a monthly military disability for my asthma, and I haven't had an asthmatic attack in 48 years, 50 years. That was also emotionally rooted. And when I dealt with the emotional root cause of that, the asthma vanished as well. So we've got to be able to deal with those things on an emotional level, and we've got to work with healing procedures when we can. But it's not guesswork. I get people frequently who come to me over the years with stomach problems, and they bring their medical records. They've gone to one specialist after the other, ruling out one illness after the other in each vital organ, and they still don't know what's going on. They're still suffering from this problem. And it's not easy to diagnose those things without knowing specifically what the cause is. If someone comes to me with a bleeding ulcer and says, I have a bleeding ulcer, this is it right over here, and here are the x-rays, and here's the reason why I've been suffering blah, 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 emotionally, blah, blah, I can work with that person and heal that ulcer. But it can't be healed by guessing. Further understanding of healing, how many of you are old enough to have remembered Oral Roberts, the television evangelist? He became world famous. In fact, they named a university after him. He's even got a pretty good basketball team nowadays, besides being into healing. Oral Roberts was the first famous television evangelist, and he had a mammoth program, real production. It was Ed Sullivan and then some. Had a big choir, tabernacle with 15 or 20,000 people, organ player, the whole works. And the program would open up and the music would come on and people would start moving down the aisles in a procession, lining up, and one at a time walking up those stairs to the waiting Oral Roberts, who'd be waiting there with his hand outstretched And as each person walked up to them, he would reach back and smack them in the forehead, and they'd fall back and he'd yell out, "In the name of Jesus Christ, be healed!" And they'd fall back into the arms of a couple of people waiting there. And then they'd get up and, "I can straighten my knees now. My back is okay. My eyesight is better." Miracles by the dozen, one after the other after the other. I was dubious, skeptical, of course. I knew he was doing hypnosis in some form or another, but I wondered about the healing. I really did. Many years later, a group of people that I was involved with in the hypnosis profession who were planning for a convention in Las Vegas of hypnotists, hypnotherapists, were talking about the whole healing process and about Oral Roberts in particular. And we went off on a tangent with it and started really questioning, and we made a decision. We're going to try and find out if, in fact, these people were healed. We contacted Oral Roberts. We got some people to cooperate with us. They were very nice. And we were able to contact a number of people who had been in that ministry and had been supposedly healed. And we narrowed it down to 9 people that we invited to come to Las Vegas. We told them we'd pay for the trip, airfare, hotels, and give you some gambling money. But you'd have to give us 1 full day to question you about what you went through. And we want you to bring your medical records, etc. And they agreed to do it. And we spent a full day with them. And we worked in teams, individually, collectively, sorted it out. And then at the end of the day, we thanked them and said, "Have a lovely time." And then we sat down for 4.5 hours to discuss our findings. What do you think those findings were? Have those people been healed miraculously or not?
Yes.
Yes? How many yeses? How many no's? They'd all been healed. Every single one of them. We had absolutely no doubt, not the slightest doubt, that they in fact had been healed. We also found out, which was not surprising, that none of those people had randomly walked up and joined that procession. They had all been processed for their suggestibility. Previously, they had met with Oral Roberts or other pastors, and when each of those people walked up toward Oral Roberts, they believed beyond a shadow of a doubt that he held the power of God in his hand and would cure them. And they were. So healing does take place in hypnosis. Some of it remarkable, some of it quite natural and ordinary. It does work. Post-hypnotic suggestions and follow-up. As I told you earlier at Low State Theater, that stage hypnotist had given me a post-hypnotic suggestion that 5 minutes after I sat down in my chair, I'd get up and start singing and running around the aisles. Post-hypnotic suggestions are planted in the mind by the hypnotist, hypnotherapist, and you go along with it. Now, it varies with each person and each suggestion. That doctor hypnotist in Cleveland who got to that guilt inside of me and got me to release it, gave me a post-hypnotic suggestion, obviously, to, cease and desist. I don't know what words he used exactly, but it took about 25, 30 minutes for it to happen. In other cases, it might have taken 2 or 3 weeks. With each person, each situation, it's going to be different. So there's no absolute rule to post-hypnotic suggestions in terms of the timing. Sometimes you have to replant the suggestion 2 or 3 times, depending on the person's resistance. Sometimes there is a certain level of resistance. So you've got to work through that resistance. So it's never the same, any more than any 2 hypnosis sessions are the same. They're all quite different and unique. The big question asked by most people, can you be made to do something against your will in hypnosis? The answer point blank is no. Why? If I have someone who's come to me to quit smoking, and I have that individual in hypnosis, and toward the end of the session, after that individual has in fact become a non-smoker for life, I say to him, oh, by the way, after you come out of hypnosis, when you write out your check for this session, I want you to write out a second check for $5,000 as a loan to me, which I'll repay in 6 months, or I could say as a gift to me for all I've done for you. What do you think that person's going to do?
Not write it.
Not right. In fact, they're probably going to get out of that chair and say, goodbye, buddy, I don't want any part of you.
How's that going to affect their non-smoking?
It depends on the timing and a few other things. The main point is that people are not going to do what they don't want to do merely because they're in hypnosis. Again, remember, they're alert, responsive, their minds are not shut down, they're not going to do anything they don't want to do.
Yeah, they don't actually remember what?
Depending on how that's posed. Some people, some hypnotists like to say, you will not remember. I generally say, you may or may not remember. Can you go in and out of hypnosis? Yes. In fact, there are many, many reasons to use that as a technique. A wonderful hypnotist named George Kappas was married to a marvelous talent named Florence Henderson. People remember Florence Henderson? Marvelous singer, Broadway star. I mean, a big star. And he did a series of sessions. He was a major teacher of hypnosis. He did a series of sessions with his wife, Florence Henderson, dealing with her stage fright. Hard to believe when you watch these people that they're suffering from stage fright, but they are. The story about Jewel Briner. He played the King 3,100 times in The King and I. And Johnny Carson asked him, that he said, you must be pretty relaxed when you go on. And Briner looked at him and said, Johnny, every one of those 3,100 performances, 20 minutes before I get that knock on the door, I go to the bathroom and vomit. People suffer from stage fright. A standard thing. Very, very few performing artists do not have stage fright. Florence Henderson had an acute case of stage fright. And what he did with her was very remarkable, going in and out of hypnosis. Stages, levels, degrees. He would start at home 3.5 hours before performance time, and he hypnotized her and got her into her state of present being. What was she experiencing? Any nerves, tightness? She just had her dinner a half hour earlier. That was one level. Then he went to a second level, reintroducing hypnosis. Now she's in her taxi on the way to the theater. Second level of hypnosis. Another point, what's happening now, Florence? I'm beginning to feel it coming on. I'm beginning to think about driving up to that theater. What kind of an audience are we going to have tonight? What kind of shape is my throat in? Then he comes out, brings her into again. She's backstage now, 20 minutes before curtain time. What's she going through? Now she's really feeling the stage fear. Beginning to get to her gut, tightening her gut up, and she's worried about her voice now. And she's vocalizing, practicing, getting ready, but the voice isn't where she wants it to be, and she's scared. Take her out of hypnosis. After dealing with that segment, then knock on the door, 5 minutes, Miss Henderson. So he layers this on, one level at a time. So it's a very, very effective tool in hypnosis when used properly. So there's a reason why you would take someone in and out of hypnosis. Any questions on that? I've used that very effectively a number of times, and for a lot of different issues. And sometimes you want to work on different levels. You can't quite get to the full level. The person isn't ready yet. Again, there might be some resistance, so you cover it on one level, and then you go back to it on another level. Do you communicate in hypnosis? Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of communication. Not just one person telling you something or directing you something. There's communication. Of course, the hypnotist, hypnotherapist has been communicating with the person before doing the hypnosis and knows a lot about the issue or problem or conflict that they're working on, knows a lot about the language involved and the emotions involved. So you're not going in blind. That's foolish to go in blind. What if someone actually falls asleep? As I said, you just wake them up and say, be alert. Can strange things happen in hypnosis? Yes, they often do. Guy I had here for smoking, right in the middle of the session, turned to me and said, excuse me, Nickolas, but hope you don't mind, but my cousin Vinny is here with me. As well as he's in hypnosis, and he's telling me his cousin Vinny is with him. Oh, well, what's Vinny doing here? Vinny went to a hypnotist a year ago to quit smoking, and it was successful, and he's kind of like encouraged me to do it. Oh, so you got Vinny with you to kind of reinforce? Is that it? Yeah. Is that all right? Fine. Welcome, Vinny. I'll go along with that. So strange things do happen. Other strange thing, another typical thing, I had someone again for smoking, and we use scripts in hypnosis, scripts for different things, and there are specific scripts for smoking. One of which is I'll have a person who is about to become a non-smoker for life walking along a dried out lava bed. And he's feeling the dried out lava beneath his feet. He's crunching down on that dried out lava. And I want him to feel that dried out lava. I want him to feel that sense of coolness. And this one person turns to me and says, problem? I said, what? He says, the soles of my feet are getting very warm. In fact, they're getting hot. Come out of hypnosis. Why are you here? To quit smoking. No, you're not. You're not here to quit smoking. Your feet wouldn't be getting hot if you were quitting smoking. No. Why are you here? And he looked kind of, you're right. No, he says, I don't want to quit smoking. In fact, the last thing in the world I want to do is quit smoking. And he went on to explain to me that he was divorced from his wife and he had custody of his 13-year-old daughter who would go to school. He was disabled from a car accident. All he would do day in and day out is sit in his garage tinkering with things, building things. And he said, it's the last thing in the world I have. Why did you come to see me? My daughter is afraid that I'm going to die of lung cancer the way my father did, and she's afraid of being left alone, and she's been bugging me and pestering me for months, driving me crazy, so I finally told her I'll quit. No, he didn't quit. He didn't want to quit. Impossible. A dear friend in Newfoundland who I hadn't seen in 52 years, and I finally saw her in 2008, she got out of the car, and the first thing she said to me, Nickolas, don't you dare say a word about my smoking. I love it too much to give it up. And she had the cigarette in her hand. I said, no, Carol, keep on smoking. Don't quit. You've got to want to do it. But strange things do happen. And as I said earlier, a person may come because they want to deal with lack of confidence. They want to deal with insomnia, snoring, you name it. And then in hypnosis, suddenly, ooh, something entirely different happens. And the true nature of why they're sitting there comes out. And then you have to go along with it. Absolutely. Are results permanent by and large? Yes. If you decide that you want to punish yourself and you want to bang your head against the side of this post until it bleeds, and someone takes you to Harborview and they stitch you up, 6 months later it's healed. But if you decide to go back and bang your head against it again, it'll happen again. But by and large, you're not going to do that. Hopefully you have grown enough to have worked through all of those areas, and when you quit something, it will be permanent. Are there people who cannot or should not be hypnotized? Only a tiny fraction of the population cannot be hypnotized. I would estimate it at less than 1%, perhaps even less than 0.5%. And the people who have difficulty, probably for trust reasons, they have a hard time revealing themselves, talking about their feelings, sharing them with someone. But they can be worked with, and you can build the trust slowly and gradually, and then they can be hypnotized also. In fact, people who are most difficult to hypnotize, they're not people because of trust issues. I'll give you an example. I had one person who had a wonderful, vivid imagination and was suffering from just extraordinary stress and anxiety. And I asked her, I said, is there any time when you are relaxed? And she said, oh, there's one time and place. She says, since I was a child, my family's been taking us to the same island in Hawaii, and when I'm there, on the beach there, I am perfectly relaxed. So I asked her to describe this place, and then I took her into hypnosis and took her to this beautiful spot, and I had her walking along the beach, feeling the waves gently rolling over her toes and the sand in between her toes, and smelling the fragrance of the flowers and hearing the sounds of the birds. And suddenly I look at her and, Shelley, where are you? I'm in Nevada. What are you doing in Nevada? I'm with some friends, we're panning for minerals. She had a vivid imagination and no focus at all. So we had to go to focus and work on her focus, which we did for a period of weeks, and once that improved, she was fine in hypnosis. Is there anyone you should not hypnotize? Anyone with sociopathic patterns? I had one gentleman, and I always preface it by saying the great American humorist, whom most of you will not remember, it goes so far back, Will Rogers, was noted for saying he never met someone he didn't like. Well, the person I'm talking about never met anyone he did like. He disliked everyone. To look at you, he disliked you. He didn't need to do anything. It was an automatic with him. He disliked everyone. He had something going with everyone. I can't trust you. I wouldn't do this for you. You're a rat. You're lousy. I can tell you they're going to hurt me. Had everything going this way. Absolutely mindless. And he wanted hypnosis. And I said, sorry, dear heart, there's no way in the world I'm going to give you a tool that you could use destructively. All you need is to be able to convince yourself further that the world is against you and God knows what you're liable to do. So no, you don't want to get someone like that into hypnosis. Other than that, most people can get into hypnosis and benefit greatly from it, and also benefit greatly from self-hypnosis. And the way I teach it is to learn self-hypnosis. There's no reason not to. Unless you have a need to spend an inordinate amount of money year after year after year going to a hypnotherapist, when you can do it yourself. It's not that hard to learn. It's a process. I use it every single day, usually twice a day, and at times of serious problem or crisis, like my brother died, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 times a day. It works. It's a wonderful tool, one of many, a primary tool. And again, it's not a mystique, it's not a mysterious kind of thing. It's down-to-earth practical things that we're talking about.
From God's on board, each day I died. From the Bering Straits to Palestine, this spring, this brook will ring the bell. No need of wealth, you're in God's hotel. Rover, rover, this whole world over. Happy as me, you'll never see. Rover, rover, this whole world over. Happy as me, you'll never see.
One should know, though, was Christ's motto. So do the same. Let heaven flow. No pills, no bills.